I'm a left-handed, right-handed player. And if you can understand that, folks, you see, when I was born, I was left-handed, but my grandmother thought I was overpowered by witches and made me write with my right. So anyone who plays drums, you play this way. The snares here, the hi-hat, and the bass drums here. So you play like that. Now, if I was a right-handed drummer, I could come around the toms, natural flow. Now, my problem is I come off with the left. So that's when I break everything up because I can't actually do the normal thing. So that's what created the style of my playing, you know, made it more like just my style. Hope that answers your questions, little drummers.
And she said, take the baby. And I said, well, what's going on? And there was an octopus wrapped around the leg. I mean, I would have thrown that kid a mile. So then we went and had lunch on Pete's boat. We had some fish and chips, you know, we're from Liverpool. What the hell's this? It was octopus and chips. There was freedom when you were in Sardinia to smoke dope. And I got into a really great mood and the weather was great. The captain came out. He said, you know what octopus do? They find on the ocean bed pretty rocks, tins actually, that've been thrown from other boats. And they put like a garden around them. Well, when you're stoned, that's the best idea. And so I did start it because I had my guitar there and I play 3 chords, so everything's in 3 chords. There's another bit of footage that I don't think was in that, where George was like hanging about and I'm going, I'd like to be G and F demented, whatever he said. You know, I can only play in C. And, you know, that was just a really cool bit for me. But anyway, that's how it ended up being Octopus's Garden.
I remember Paul saying, you know, because to get the actors, we looked through that actor's book, the Spotlight or wherever, oh, we need someone like that and someone like that. And we needed the large lady as my auntie, because I was going to play this person with his auntie. And before we all met to get on the bus, actually he was on the bus and we met in some country road somewhere. And John and I went to pick up George and we met the bus, but Paul jumped off the bus and he said, I got to tell you one thing about your auntie. Well, what's that? She stinks. Do you want to go on with this? So, well, let's see what it's like.
My stepdad was the best man in the world. He's such a peaceful, great guy. I loved him. He was my dad. My dad left when I was 3. Anyway, I'd have my stuff playing, and it's just like one of those great memories. He never said, get that shit off, like fathers have been known to do. He never put what I was playing down. He always said, have you heard this? I feel today, because of the way I play, that I can't play straight rock. I hit it like straight rock, but it sort of... It always had like a 2% shuffle. And I think that's because of him.
You enjoy a bit of the old nostalgia, don't you?
Oh, I love nostalgia.
Have you kept memorabilia?
I keep everything. I do, I'm a hoarder. I've saved all my clothes through the years, and I thought, you know, it always goes round, the kids would love this. But the only time they ask me for any clothes is if there's a fancy dress party. You know, they have all the hippie stuff on. Hey, we're going to a fancy dress party, let's ask Dad.
Would you do me a tremendous favour?
I'm not going to kiss you like Elizabeth. I'm not going to rub your knees like the other guy.
Would you take the shades off for a second?
Yeah.
Oh, these lovely orbs under
Oh, he's got the bluest eyes in the world.
But they're closed.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have to keep them closed. The air gets at them.
Now, what you haven't kept, of course, the fans have. Were they always desperate for souvenirs?
Well, I think we were real lucky. I think the only thing I ever lost in all those days of madnesses was half of my scalp, a shirt and a gold necklace, which they gave me back in New York. We really weren't beat up too much. Wales was the worst place I ever went.
What were they after?
They were after my head.
How different was a Ringo fan from a George fan, say?
I had the mothers. I had the mothers and the children, always have. George has the mystics. John had the, like, you know, the intellectual college attitude.
And Paul?
And Paul had the teenies.
That shared out the human race quite well, really.
Well, that, I feel, was part of our strength, where we were a band that were appealing to children, to grandparents.
You were always the down-to-earth one.
That's right. God, you're looking chubby.
What did you...
Oh, sorry, I've got to behave. George is on.
What did you make of the Indian episode?
Well, the Indian episode was real interesting. I got 2 phone calls, one from George and one from John. We're going to Wales to meet the Maharishis. So we met him in Wales, and then we all decided to go to this ashram in India. I still thank Maharishi for what he said, but in the end, I felt he was telling me stories, but that's my problem.
In the end, I mean, how long did you actually stick that course?
10 days.
He ran out of beans.
Yeah,
He came all the way up the Himalayas with a big
Suitcase
cans
of beans and a suitcase of clothes.
George was getting a lot of independence for himself in those days. He was writing more. He wanted things to go his way. Where when we first started, they basically went John and Paul's way, you know, because they were the writers. And they'd say, you know, this is the song. I would play as creatively as I could, and they would say, can you do this? But sometimes I'd have three people telling me how to do it. I'd play it the only way I could, and it seemed to work, you know, because the three frustrated drummers I used to have in my band, or in the band, because they all wanted to play drums, and I couldn't play guitar, so it didn't matter. And I think that really helped me play in a way. And I kept screaming, there's two drummers, you know, they're saying, play this, like on that track. I'm saying, for Christ's sake, there's two drums there. They could never hear that, you know, they just hear some drum thing going on. So you'd have to have four arms to do half of the stuff they wanted me to do. So I would do it however I could. And the other reason, George was finding his independence, and he wouldn't be dominated as much by Paul as he was, because Paul, in the end, wanted to, like, point out the solo to George. And George was saying, but I'm a guitarist, I'll play the solo. And he always did, you know. He always played fine solos.
And he didn't like flies and spiders.
No, can't stand them. But the interesting part was, you see, I could only eat bland food because I was very sick as a child. So I'd have my beans, and then I was getting fed up with that. I said, you got any eggs? I like eggs in the morning, you know. And so I caught these guys burying the shells in the ground as if God wouldn't notice. I decided to leave after that.
You lived in each other's pockets, didn't you? I mean, it was like being a family.
Oh, he's always lived in mine.
But you had family rows. I mean, what were the main...
we do. We have terrible rows.
What was the main cause of your squabbles in the early days?
I don't remember any squabbles.
You don't remember anything, do you?
No, amnesia.
What about now? What makes you cross with each other now?
Well, the last time we were cross was when George was suing me. I said, no, George, don't say no. No, I'm going to sue you. I don't like what you've done. Because he wrote this song and I had it mixed by somebody else. And he didn't like the mix, so he was going to sue me. So in the end, I said, sue me if you want, but I'll always love you.
No, it's a great album. I'm not putting the album down, just our relationships. You see, you have to think, I don't just look at it, listen to the record. I'm going through what our relationships were at the time, you know, and they changed all the time. And I felt our relationship was better on the White Album and definitely on Abbey Road.
It was all over by the time Let It Be was being filmed and recorded, according to George and according to John.
It was. That's because George left. George left on Let It Be. We were very possessive of each other, you know. The four of us had been through a lot together, and we were very close most of the time. We weren't close all the time, and it went round, you know. I'd be close with John, I'd be close with George, I'd be close with Paul, they'd be close. John and I and George would be close. Paul, John and George would be, you know. It went round in a lot of circles, but most of the time, four of us were very close. And I don't know, I thought we were very possessive of each other in a way, you know, not like, you know, a mother-son thing, you know, but just with ourselves. And we didn't like strangers coming in too much. The wives and the girlfriends never came to the studio. That was where we were together. And I think that's why we worked so well, because there was just the four of us, and there was no outside influence, unless we brought it in, like, you know, someone to come down and play on it, or make it flash past for an hour or so because he had nothing to do or whatever, you know, those things. But basically it was just the four of us recording, and it was intense, you know, and dramatic, and we were trying to get the record done the best we could. We'd do one track for a week, you know. It takes a week to do one track, just the backing track sometimes. So we all got a bit weird, and, you know, I was wondering what was happening one day. So I was saying to John, you know, what is going on here? You know, you're always together all the time. It's freaking me out a bit. What's happening? And he told me what they were trying to do. It's nothing to do with you, the listening public. So then I was fine after that. Oh, well, okay. I mean, that's how he wants to do it. You know, that's fine with me. And then I sort of relaxed a lot around Yoko. I think she's hysterical. I played on an album with her. I think that's one of them.
You know, I was 30 when it was all over. We did 8 years, and look what we packed in, because we loved to work. Well, Paul loved to work more than all of us, because John and I would be like hanging out in the garden, and the phone would ring. We knew it was him. Hey lads, should we go into the studio? All right, yeah. So I've always thanked him for being that guy, because otherwise we'd have put like 3 albums out and vanished. We FaceTime each other like twice a month. Or if he's in town, we hang. If I'm in London, we hang. And I said, well, I'm doing an EP. Have you got any songs? Write me a song. He said, oh, okay. And then he sent me the Sunshine song, and he's all over it, which is great. And when he did send the work track, he'd actually done the drums, so we had to take them off. So I did the drums and the vocals, and it was fun.
Should we take them one at a time?
Yes.
All right, what was the first one?
Are you as close?
Yes.
With,
You know, there's that famous old saying, you always hurt the one you love. And we all love each other, and we all know that, but we still sort of hurt each other occasionally, you know, where we just misunderstand each other. And we go off, you know, and it builds up to something bigger than it ever was. And then we have to come down to it and get it over with, you know, and sort it out. And so we're still really very close people. What's the second one?
do you see the Beatles going on like they are at the moment for a long time in the future, or do you see a split very soon?
Depends what you mean as a split. I mean, we split
Go your separate ways and not
completely.
perform
No,
together?
we'll never go. Oh, I can't say never, but I mean, we won't go our separate ways after this album, and we'll always be tied up with each other in some way, you know, because we've signed a lot of papers. It says we stay together for 20 years or something.
Film fan, haven't
I love films. I love cameras, as you may have noticed.
You've got a lot of new fans, though, with Thomas the Tank
Oh, I
Engine.
have. It's great. It's great. It is fabulous with Thomas. I never knew it would be so big. In fact, the first time Britt Allcroft, who was the producer of all this, came up saying, you know, I'd like you to read these stories about this train, which I never had because I was a Beano man. And I said, you're going to be crazy. It's Star Wars and Madison. We were talking years ago anyway. And so she came back and convinced me. So I said, look, I'll just read 5 of the stories on my own, on tape, and you listen to them and see if you still want me. And she did. And then we did Thomas the Train. There's all these little babies screaming again. Ringo, Ringo! I used to have the mothers. Now I've got the kids.